The sound pierced through the early morning stillness like a siren. James Mitchell pulled his pickup truck to the shoulder of Highway 42, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. It was 4:47 a.m. on Christmas Eve, and the temperature had dropped to 18 degrees overnight. He'd been heading back from the all-night diner where he worked the graveyard shift, exhausted, thinking only of getting home to his 9-year-old son Alex before the boy woke up. They had Christmas to prepare for, just the two of them like always. But that sound stopped him cold. At first, James thought it might be a wounded animal. Then it came again, weaker this time, more desperate. Unmistakably human. Unmistakably infant. "No," James whispered, his hands already reaching for the door handle. "Please, no." He grabbed his phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped out into air so cold it burned his lungs. The cry came from somewhere beyond the guardrail, down the embankment where frost-covered weeds gave way to a drainage ditch. James's light swept across the frozen landscape until it caught something that made his heart stop. A basket, the kind people used for laundry or groceries. And inside it, wrapped in what looked like a thin kitchen towel, was a baby. "Oh God," James breathed, already running, sliding down the embankment without thought for his own safety. "Oh God, oh God, oh God." The baby was maybe 2 months old, if that. Her lips had a blue tinge. Her tiny fists were curled tight. Her cries were so weak now, barely more than whimpers. James scooped her up immediately, tucking her inside his jacket against his chest, trying to transfer his body heat. That's when he saw the note. It was taped to the inside of the basket, written on notebook paper in cramped, shaky handwriting. "I can't do this. She cries all the time. I'm only 17. Nobody wants her. Maybe somebody will find her. Maybe not. I'm sorry." The words hit James like a physical blow. This baby had been left here to die. Someone had placed her in this basket, written that note, and driven away. On Christmas Eve. James didn't waste another second. He climbed back up the embankment, the baby tucked securely against him, and got into his truck. He cranked the heat to maximum, positioned the baby so she could breathe comfortably, and with shaking hands, dialed 911. 911, "What's your emergency?" "I found a baby," James said, his voice raw. "Highway 42, mile marker 17. She was in a basket on the embankment. She's alive but hypothermic. She needs an ambulance now." The dispatcher was professional, calm, asking questions about the baby's condition, telling James to keep her warm, to keep her awake if possible. But James could hear the shock underneath her composure. As he waited for the ambulance, James looked down at the tiny face against his chest. The baby's eyes fluttered open, dark blue, unfocused, but searching. "Hey, little one," James whispered. "I've got you. You're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you. I promise." The baby made a sound, not quite a cry, just a vocalization. Her tiny hand found its way out of the towel and grasped James's finger with that instinctive newborn grip. Something shifted in James's chest. A crack, a breaking open. A feeling he recognized but hadn't felt this intensely since the day Alex was born. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. James thought about Alex at home, asleep in his bed, dreaming of Christmas morning. Thought about how different their lives had become after Sarah died 3 years ago. Thought about single fatherhood and struggling to be enough for one child, let alone 2. But looking down at this abandoned baby, this tiny life someone had deemed unwanted, all James could think was, "I found you. I found you in time." The ambulance arrived with a police car right behind it. Paramedics rushed over, their movements quick and efficient. "Sir, I need you to give me the baby," one paramedic said gently. James's arms tightened instinctively. Then he forced himself to release her, watching as they checked her vitals, wrapped her in thermal blankets, prepared to transport her. "Is she going to be okay?" James asked. The paramedic, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, looked at him seriously. You got here just in time. Another hour in this cold. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. A police officer approached, a man about James's age with a notepad. Sir, I'm Officer David Torres. I need to ask you some questions about how you found the baby. James answered mechanically. He'd been driving home from work. Heard crying. Found the baby in a basket. There was a note. He pointed to the basket still at the bottom of the embankment. Officer Torres photographed everything, bagged the note as evidence. His jaw tight with barely controlled anger. Mr. Mitchell, Officer Torres said finally. Most people would have driven past, would have assumed it was an animal or convinced themselves they didn't hear anything. You stopped. You saved this child's life. James shook his head. I just heard her crying. James followed the ambulance to Mercy General Hospital, unable to make himself go home even though Alex would be waking up soon. He needed to know she was okay. This baby he'd held for maybe 15 minutes but who had already changed something fundamental inside him. At the hospital, James sat in the waiting room, his uniform from the diner still smelling like coffee and bacon grease, his hands shaking from adrenaline crash. He called Mrs. Rodriguez, his neighbor who sometimes watched Alex. I need a favor. Can you go check on Alex? Something came up. I'll explain later, but he should still be asleep. An hour later, a doctor found him. Mr. Mitchell? The baby is stable. You got her here in time. She's dehydrated and hypothermic, but there's no frostbite, no permanent damage. She's going to be okay. Relief flooded through James so powerfully he had to sit back down. Can I see her? The doctor hesitated. You're not family. I know. I found her. I need to know she's really okay. Something in James's expression must have convinced her. 5 minutes. The baby was in the NICU, in a warmed isolette, for in her tiny hand, monitors beeping steadily. She was asleep now, her color much better, lips pink instead of blue. James stood there, his hand pressed against the clear plastic, and felt tears he didn't know he'd been holding back finally fall. She's beautiful, isn't she? James turned to find a woman in her 60s standing behind him. ID badge reading, Dr. Patricia Chan, Social Services. Yeah, James managed. She is. I'm Patricia Chan. I've been assigned to her case. Can we talk? They sat in a small consultation room. Patricia had kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor. First, thank you for what you did. You saved her life. She paused. The police are investigating, trying to find whoever left her. But based on the note and circumstances, this person doesn't want to be found. She said she was 17, James said quietly. In the note. Patricia nodded. A child herself. Desperate, scared, probably feeling like she had no options. She sighed. It doesn't excuse what she did, but these situations are rarely simple. What happens now? To the baby? She'll stay here a few days for observation. Then she'll go into emergency foster care while we try to locate family. If no one comes forward, parental rights will eventually be terminated and she'll be free for adoption. James heard himself ask, how long does that take? Patricia studied him carefully. Why do you ask? I don't know, James admitted. I can't stop thinking about her. About that note. Nobody wants her. That's what it said. And I keep thinking somebody should want her. Somebody should fight for her. Mr. Mitchell, can I call you James? He nodded. James, you're a hero for what you did this morning. But wanting to help a child and being able to care for one long-term are very different things. What's your situation? I'm a single dad. My son Alex is 9. My wife died 3 years ago, cancer. I work nights at Miller's Diner to make ends meet. It's not much, but we're doing okay. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Foster care isn't easy. The system is overwhelmed. This baby will likely move between placements. She'll face challenges. What if she didn't have to? What are you suggesting? James took a deep breath. What would I need to do to become a foster parent? To take care of her? Patricia gave James her card and told him to think carefully about what he was considering. But as James drove home in the gray light of Christmas Eve morning, he already knew. Alex was awake when James got home, sitting at the kitchen table with Mrs. Rodriguez, worry written all over his small face. Dad, where were you? Mrs. Rodriguez wouldn't tell me anything. James sat down, pulling Alex close. I need to tell you something, buddy. Something big happened this morning. He explained about finding the baby, about the hospital, about how she'd been left alone in the cold. Alex listened, his eyes getting wider and wider. Is she okay? Alex asked when James finished. She's going to be okay, because we found her in time. Dad, Alex said seriously, that baby needs us. James blinked. What? She doesn't have anybody. Her mom left her. But we know what that's like. When Mom died, we felt alone too. That baby needs a family. We could be her family. Out of the mouths of children. It's not that simple, buddy. Taking care of a baby is hard. It would change everything. I'd be more tired, more busy. You'd have to share my attention. Alex was quiet for a moment. Then, when Mom was sick, you said families help each other. That's what makes them families. This baby needs help. And Christmas is about miracles, right? Maybe we're her miracle. James pulled his son into a tight hug, overwhelmed by this wise, compassionate kid he'd somehow managed to raise. Over the next week, while the baby stayed in the hospital, James started the process. Applications, background checks, home studies, financial statements. It was overwhelming and exhausting, especially while working full-time and caring for Alex. But James didn't waver. On New Year's Eve, Patricia called. The baby's being discharged tomorrow. I've been authorized to place her with you temporarily while your application is fully processed. James's heart nearly stopped. Really? You're qualified, James. Your home study was excellent. Your references are glowing. And honestly, Patricia's voice softened. That baby needs you. I can see it. You two found each other for a reason. The baby came home on January 2nd. James and Alex had spent days preparing, setting up the spare bedroom as a nursery, buying supplies with money James had been saving for emergencies, reading every parenting book they could find. She needs a name, Alex said as they waited for Patricia to arrive. We can't keep calling her the baby. They'd been thinking about this. The hospital staff had been calling her Baby Jane Doe, but that felt wrong. What about Joy? James suggested. We found her on Christmas Eve, and she's brought us. Joy, Alex finished. Yeah. Joy Mitchell. That's perfect. When Patricia arrived with Joy, Alex immediately knelt down to look at her. Hi, Joy, he said softly. I'm Alex. I'm your big brother. Welcome home. Joy was 2.5 months old now, bigger than when James had found her, but still so small. She looked at Alex with those unfocused baby eyes, and something in James's chest expanded. This was his family now. Alex, Joy, and him. Unconventional, maybe, not what he'd planned, but perfect. The next year was the hardest of James's life. Joy had colic, screaming for hours every night. James was exhausted, trying to work nights and care for an infant and a 9-year-old. Money was impossibly tight. There were court dates, social worker visits, endless paperwork. The investigation into Joy's biological mother went nowhere. The 17-year-old mentioned in the note was never found. If stories like this still mean something to you, don't just scroll. Subscribe and stay for the next one. Alex struggled at school, tired from the baby's crying, adjusting to not being the only child. There were moments when James wondered if he'd made a mistake, if he'd bitten off more than he could chew. But then Joy would smile at him, that gummy, whole-faced baby smile. Or Alex would rock her to sleep, singing the lullaby Sarah used to sing. Or Joy would wrap her tiny fingers around James's thumb and hold on like he was her whole world. And James would remember. She was unwanted. Someone left her to die. And he'd chosen her. Every day he chose her. After 18 months, the court terminated parental rights. Joy was legally free for adoption. Patricia came to the house with the paperwork. James, you've done everything right. Joy is thriving with you. The adoption can move forward whenever you're ready. I'm ready, James said without hesitation. I've been ready since the morning I found her. The adoption hearing was set for December 23rd, almost exactly 2 years after James found Joy on Highway 42. They dressed up, James in his only suit, Alex in dress pants and a button-up shirt, Joy in a white dress with tiny flowers. The courtroom was packed. Mrs. Rodriguez was there. James's boss from the diner. Alex's teacher. Patricia, beaming in the front row. Officer Torres, who'd responded that Christmas Eve morning, had taken personal time to attend. Judge Martinez reviewed the file, then looked at James. Mr. Mitchell, 2 years ago you found this child abandoned on a roadside. You saved her life that morning. In the 2 years since, you've given her far more than life. You've given her a home, a family, unconditional love. Joy Mitchell is exactly where she belongs. The gavel came down. Adoption granted. Congratulations, Mr. Mitchell. She's officially yours. Alex was crying. James was crying. Joy, now 2 years old and chatty, clapped her hands and said, "Dada!" Clear as day. The courtroom erupted in applause. Christmas Eve. 4 years after James found Joy, they stood together at mile marker 17 on Highway 42. James, Alex, now 13, and Joy, now 4. They'd come every year, placing flowers at the spot where James had found her. A small memorial with a plaque that read, "Joy's Place, where miracles happen." "Tell me the story again, Daddy," Joy said, holding James's hand. James knelt down. Once upon a time, on a very cold Christmas Eve, a baby was left all alone. But someone heard her crying and stopped to help. And that's how you came to our family. Because you chose me, Joy said seriously. 4 years old with the wisdom of someone who understood what she'd survived. Because we chose you, James corrected. Every single day we choose you. You're wanted, Joy. So wanted. So loved. Alex put his arm around his little sister. Best Christmas present ever. That evening, back home with hot chocolate and Christmas cookies, Alex asked the question James knew was coming eventually. "Dad, do you ever think about Joy's birth mother? Wonder where she is?" James thought about the 17-year-old girl who'd written that desperate note, who'd been a child herself, scared and alone. "I do," James admitted. "I hope she's okay. I hope she's gotten help. I hope she knows Joy survived, that she's loved, that she's thriving. Do you think she regrets it? I don't know, buddy, but I hope someday she finds peace. What she did was wrong. But she was also a scared kid who didn't know what else to do." Joy climbed into James's lap. "I'm glad you found me, Daddy." James held his daughter close. This miracle child who'd transformed his life. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." That night, after both kids were asleep, James stood at the window looking out at the Christmas lights. 4 years ago, he'd been driving home exhausted, thinking only about getting through another day. He'd had no idea that one decision, to stop when he heard crying, would change 3 lives forever. Joy wasn't unwanted. That note had been wrong about everything. She was cherished, fought for, home, and that made all the difference. Sometimes the smallest voice crying in the darkness is waiting for someone brave enough to stop and listen. Sometimes the child nobody wants is the child somebody needs. And sometimes the family you choose is the family that was meant to be all along. One decision. One stopped car. 3 lives forever changed. Because love isn't about biology. It's about choice. And James Mitchell chose Joy every single day. Merry Christmas, Joy. Welcome home.